Let's create a fantasy image from this shoot I did just before Christmas last year, and I'm looking at creating an ethereal, warm tone fantasy image. We're going to add a little bit of a light on the candle inside the lantern. We're going to warm the tone up, and we're going to just create a little bit more mystery, I think, to this overall image. Now, as usual, I don't have a plan, haven't looked at this beforehand. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by going through and we'll do cleanup. We always do cleanup first. Got to clean up before you start making a mess. So I'm going to zoom in and have a look around. Now, actually, I think this image was quite neat. There wasn't really very much that needed doing because we've got the fan in the hair. There's not too many hairs that are like annoying and distracting. Nothing's going across the face. Her skin is beautifully clear. So overall, there really isn't that much that I actually need to do. So cleanup's kind of done. Nothing's in there. I'll just lighten my levels, have a look. So I've got a little bit in the background. So what I'll do is I'll create an adjustment level and move my midtones up so I can see these errors in the background. Go back onto my background layer, and with my patch tool, simply remove those so that doesn't come up. That sort of thing can show up in printing quite a lot. So you want to make a habit of doing that, especially at the end when you finished your edit, looking for any issues, repetition, things like that. That will get caught out with printing. So next thing I would usually do is contour. Now, I don't really have a lot of contour I need to do on this image. I'm going to contour the head a little bit. I'm going to bring the chin up and I'm going to add a little bit more onto the lantern. So what I'm going to do, we're going to create a 50% grey layer on soft light. So we're going to hit Control, Shift and N, down to soft light, tick the box, click OK, and then we're going to be on our dodge and our burn to create what we want to create. So dodge midtones at 20%. Burn tool will be on the same setting. So I'm just contouring here. Now note that I'm only going to be contouring exactly where the light was already hitting. We're not looking at lightening up shadow. That was all done in camera. That is the lighting that was intended. We're not here to make corrections. We're here to enhance the image we have. So I'm going to travel down and I'm going to create a little bit more contour across this arm. I've got a thinner brush because I want a thinner level of brightness. I'm going to come up and down these levels here and just a little bit up and down there. Perfect. I can also enhance the dress by going along any little like ripples or pleats that have appeared in the dress. And if I now go onto my burn tool and do that too, by the time I turn this off and on again, you're going to see a nice enhancement. If I turn that off and on the dress, just gives it a little bit of oomph, gives it a bit of 3D. If I turn this off and on, you can see we've not done a lot. We've just sort of, that's my drawing. That's exactly what's been done. Very little on the contour has been added there. So I'm happy with that. Now I'm thinking I might want to add a little bit of sort of darkening, a bit of vignette around it. I'm going to enhance the light in the lantern. I'm definitely going to do that. I want just a little bit of a flicker. So I'll show you a technique that I use to create that kind of flicker. I don't add a flame as such. I create that kind of flare that it would, as if it was hitting the camera. So I'm going to go back to my background layer. Let's do this now. We'll zoom in. We're going to hit Control J to create a duplicate. We're then going to hit Control U, up our lightness almost all the way, very close. And then we're going to go Filter, Gaussian Blur, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and just bring that so we can just about see things, but it's just a little bit blurred, a little bit out there. I'm then going to hit Control B, and I'm going to make it warm. I'm going to add red, and I'm going to add yellow, because it would be a warmer kind of light. And then I'm going to hit my mask, Control I, to get rid. Now, this is where the technique becomes a little bit artsy. It's going to be something a little bit crafty. So we're going to get a brush and we're going to want it to be very feathered, very, very feathered. You do not want a hard brush for this. We want it incredibly feathered. So if I draw it, it's going to be like that. And I'm going to go very, very small. And I'm going to just do a little tiny tap. Now, keeping my brush where it is, I'm going to make my brush bigger by using the I don't know the name, the square brackets on your keyboard. And I'm going to hit 10 to take my opacity up here to 10%. Now, you can go, you could start 30 and work your way down. You'll see why that's relevant in a minute. But 10 is a good beginner's technique for this. And then you're going to tap 2, 3, make it bigger, tap 2, 3, make it bigger, tap 2, 3, make it bigger, tap 2, 3, and you keep going as long as you want. And what you're doing, it's not the same as just creating one flare, because you're building it up from a point and you're controlling exactly how the gradient comes out, and you've got that initial flame in there that you can kind of see through the flare. So if I now zoom out and we turn that off and on, you can see that the lantern kind of has that little bit of flare, gives it a slightly realistic vibe. If it's not looking realistic, play with your opacity, because you can choose how much you want that flame to be on. And depending on if your image is lighter, darker, whatever it sort of is, you might want to play with your settings or your layer settings. There we go, layer blend modes, to see if one of those is going to fit better. As you can see, that sort of does different kind of effects from there, and one of them might work better for you. Sometimes this works as is, sometimes you need to play. But that's the beauty of being an artist and getting to create. So overall, I like that. I think that has worked really, really well. Next thing I want to do is I want to create a little bit of light coming through the image in almost a flare kind of way. So the settings I used before are going to be accurate again. So let's do it again. Let's hit Control J. Ooh, big noise. We're going to hit Control Alt U, because that's going to do the same thing. I'm assuming it's doing that because it's erroring. Okay, Control Alt B, and that's going to do the same thing. The reason I'm doing Control Alt and not just Control is Alt will remember what it did previously. And I'm not going to worry too much with my blur layer, because I'm going to be adding things over here. You can't see any detail anyway. I'm going to hit my mask, Control I, and using my brush, I'll zoom out a bit. This is where I'm going to make my brush quite big. And I'm going to go down to 10%. I'll tell you what, I'll start at 30%. And I'm going to tick right in the corner and right in the corner down there. And I'm going to just go smaller and go into the corner again and again there. And now I'm going to take it down to 20%, and I'm going to do one big one there and 2 round the edge. I did not tap that 3 times. It's a con. 1 here, 1 either side, another in the middle, another in the middle. Your middle flare would be bigger. That makes sense. And then we're going to take it down to 10% and do those last little ones coming over. Now, I've learnt this nothing more than studying flares on my own images, reading light. There is no maths to this. This is what works for me. So figure it out what works for you. Once I've got this, again, you can play with the blend settings. I normally find that if you just turn the opacity up and down a bit, you can get that to exactly where you want it, just to give you a little bit of haze. I think it can be nice for having the haze without adding that like vintage fade effect. I think it can be quite nice just to give you a little bit of that kind of ethereal sort of vibe to it. Now, overall, last thing I want to do is play with my colouring. I think I'm going to go to my adjustments, and I will go to colour balance. I'm going to go to my shadows, and then if we just move, I'm going to move that into the warm tone of the shadows. Quite like that. I think that's looking nice. Let's zoom in again. I think that is looking nice. Yeah, I like that colouring. And let's turn that off and on. And if I want, I can go over to my highlights and I can add some sort of cyan. I can add some yellows. I could play with my greens, my magentas, however I want to play with those highlights. I like that. I think that looks nice. That's kind of added the vibe that I wanted for this image. Slight mystery, but you don't quite know what's going on yet. It's got that little bit of narrative to it. I think that looks good. I might play with my composition, but I'm only going to shave a little bit off the top. Let's do that now. So hit crop. See, I am hitting it, but okay, it's not working. I'm just going to shave a tiny bit. It was sort of there, but I'm going to bring it down just to there. Yeah, I'm happier with that. And I think that looks really good. I'm really happy. So let's have a look at our before and after. Brilliant. So the integrity of the image, this is what's important. The integrity of the image is the same. The lighting and what I created in shot, in camera, is exactly the same. What I've looked at doing is creating like a fantasy ethereal feel of things that I couldn't have done as easily in camera, just to elevate it to the next level. This is all about editing, but I believe if you're a photographer, you should be taking the photographs as best you can and using editing as a tool to enhance your images, not relying on it to make bad images good. But I think that's been really, really productive. I'm really happy with that as a result. I'm going to go on and edit the rest of this set now and do it exactly the same. Thank you for joining me. And if you're still here, please hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. Every little helps. Comment what you thought of this video. We're doing this for you. And let me know if there's anything else you guys want to know.